Welcome back to another video here in Body Image Health and Fitness, aka Lockdown Motors. Lockdown number 3, so obviously these lockdowns are just becoming norm now, so I've lined up jobs to do during the lockdown, and there's a lot of jobs to do during this lockdown, however long it's going to be. First up is BMW E30 for a full respray inside and out. This is a bare shell coming in, engine out, and there's lots and lots of painting to be done in this one. But before the painting gets done, there's lots of body work to be done. Big job, this one. So it's in 2 stages. This is episode 1 of 2. So without further ado, on with the video. Here comes the car. And we're in. So what have we got? We have an E30, and this is an E30 going to be now 318 IS with an M42 engine, and obviously the engine and everything is out of it, and we're going to be painting under the bonnet there as well, and glass is out, front end is off, you can see the bumpers are over there on the ground, sunroof is off, lower front valance panel brand new. And in the car, we've got 2 new wings to go on as well. But the shell in this thing is fantastic. Really fantastic shell. Underneath it, all the pockets in the back, all the usual spots in it are actually fantastic. Really good car. So I'm not going to. He's not going to have to worry about rust in this one anyway. That's for sure. Beauty. Really nice shell, in fairness. It would have been, I suppose, 2003, 2004 when I would have been having gone through a fair share of E30s back in those days. And back then they were rotting. So you can imagine 16, 17 years later, it's going to be very difficult to find a good one to start with. But this one is quite good. There's a few little tiny marks on it that Steve has treated himself. And under the bonnet here, I think he's done a small bit of work as well, which is cool. So we're looking forward now to sanding this one down, getting it ready, and getting 2-pack primer on it, and get the whole thing primed up and get it ready to paint in high solid. And with the high solid, then I'm actually going putting lacquer over that then as well, just to give it a really nice depth of material on it. Like I said, doing it under the bonnet, take the doors off as well, doing it around the doors and around the door jambs, all of that, and just make a nice job of it. I won't be putting this one back together. It'll be going away painted in this state, and Steve will be putting it back together himself. He's got the engine to put in, suspension, subframes, all sorts of bits and pieces to be changed on it, and he's doing that in his own time. So we're just having to paint it, which is good, which is nice. And I'm looking forward to seeing it when it's finished. So next job, get sanding. I started this sanding process, and I want to show you what I'm doing. Okay, so this door is a-okay. The finish underneath it was good, so it's a nice smooth surface. So I've sanded that down, and I'm happy with what's underneath it, and I know that that's good to prime. So we move on to this panel here, and on this panel there was some blistering in the paintwork and some blistering around here. I don't know if you can kind of make it out there. I just left those there so the camera will pick up on them. With the blistering, that's probably come from before, when you can see there was a repair done on the side of it there before. That's come from the previous repair, and there was either moisture in the air, moisture in the material they were using, and it's come from moisture, and it's just bubbled out, and it's left blistering all along that panel. But what's happened is some of the blisters, I would say, over time had burst. And I'm just going to turn off the flash, and you'll see, let's see, can I get that to focus? You can see those little micro indentations there. That's where rust had started to get at it. And the reason why I stopped is I wanted to record this and show you before I kept going. So what my goal here is, with that, now the owner treated it to stop it spreading any further, which is great. And what I'm going to do with that now is I'm going to go in pretty hard with different grade discs and try and polish that metal up as much as I possibly can, and really try to get rid of as much of that as possible. Just even here, for instance, there was a scab there, and I just left a little dot there to show you. You can actually polish a lot of them out with the sanding disc, and then check your level then afterwards, and it's the rust is gone. And that's really the key way of doing it. Try and get rid of it as much as possible. Just to show you on the roof here, there's a few scabs. Like even so much as just even stone chips, is very, very important that where the rust has started, that you have to get rid of it, because it will come back out again. So super important. So I'm going to crack on here with this now, and I'll show you how this turns out once it's all sanded down. Now that looks slightly different than it did. Back to the bare metal. Now, why did I go back to the bare metal? A couple of reasons. I kept sanding and sanding and sanding, and especially just on this section here, there was lots of those micro blisters, and according as I went down, I was uncovering new ones. So I knew that I would have to go all the way back to get whatever material was on there off it, to stand a chance of it not popping out again. Because the last thing I want is to see this car in 3 months' time or even a month's time and see those blisters come back out. There was some filler here as well. I thought maybe there might be some contamination in the filler work as well. So I took it right back. And plus the fact as well, if it was my car, I'd want to know what was behind the filler work. Is there a massive dent? What was there? So what there was this little scratch down the side of it, tiny indentation, and the filler work was from there all the way over to there. So what I'm going to do is, the door panel's off already, so I'm going to get in behind that now and actually just knock that out the best way I can, and take the bulk of the dent out of it, and it'll literally take a quarter of the amount of fillers that was in it, and at least the owner knows what was behind there. So that's that. This pitting here has got quite good. There's still tiny little marks there, but they're not gonna cause any problem. So that is ready to put 2-pack primer on whenever we choose to do it. Well, that is, and I'm just going to straighten out this dent now, and tiny bit of fillers on that, and we should be good to go. Some people often refer to, I want my car taken back to, I hear people say, I want my car taken back to bare metal, and most of the time there is no need, and it's pointless. Like if you look at the upper part of this panel here, there's no point taking that paint off because there's no problem underneath it. But when there's a problem underneath it, for yourself, you're better off taking it back, and at least you know what you have. And so yeah, on to the next panel to see what I'm going to discover on here. Now, see the dent? Or maybe you don't see it. I got the most of it out. So if you really look down the line there, it is pretty much gone. Tiny little ripple just there. But a little skim of fillers will get that now. Not like the bucket load of it that came off. And just a simple thing, took the inner door card off and just tapped the dent out. I just kept at it and kept at it and kept at it until the metal was pretty much straight. And that's it. Little skim of fillers was all that was needed. And I don't know why people waste so much time putting on fillers and just covering over dents when they could just spend a small bit of time knocking them out, and job would have been done. Now some of the bonnet is done, and I again just wanted to show you that, fortunately or unfortunately, however you look at it, I had to go back to bare metal. The reason being is, if I show you here, let's hope the camera picks it up. So you've got little marks like that, but all on the paintwork. There's all little stone chips like that, and you can see the little rust bits there, and down around the front there. Okay, so what happens is when you open these up, here is a good example. So it doesn't look that bad there. but when you open that up, the rust has really started to bubble under the paint, and it's starting to erupt and come to the top. What you could do is you could just flatten this down, knock the head off the scab, flatten it, put primer over it and paint it, and everything would be fine for the short term. But in a matter of weeks it would start bubbling again, and it would, within 12 months it could potentially look like this again. So obviously that's not good for me and it's not good for the owner. So what we have to do is get it all back and make sure that it's all gone. Obviously this takes a considerable amount of time, but it just means that it's going to be protected and it's going to be done right, and it's going to be done once, and it's going to last for years, as opposed to doing a quick job and having to sand it down again in 12 months time and paint it again, and I'm sure nobody wants that. So the bonnet is covered in these little scabs. You can see there's another one. The dust off it. There's another one just there, and that's going to, when you open that, that's going to have started to spread. So it's just to spend the extra bit of time on it now. I suppose with this part here, it's taken me an hour and a half, I suppose, to get down that far on that. So you're talking about potentially 4 hours work on the bonnet, but look, it's worth it. You know, it's worth it, and it's worth building it back up, and you know exactly what you have. And by documenting it here on video, at least you're able to see it back afterwards. And if the owner was able to sell the car on at a later stage, then at least the documentation is there to show, look, you know, the shell is as good as I say it is. Had similar thing on the roof. Not too bad, just I exposed a few areas there that I'm going to attack later with just to get in a bit deeper. You can see where the pitting is there. Now if you can get that out of it, but you just need to be a bit more aggressive. So I'll get that out now later on. I'm just waiting for coarser sanding discs. The door, pretty good. Shouldn't have an issue there, and that quarter panel shouldn't have an issue there. So I'm just getting all the worst bits done first and getting it ready to prime. Slow, but it's going to be worth it in the end. I just said I'd take it down to this layer just to show you. So let's try and use the natural light on this one. Okay, so I've taken now there's not much material on here. It's definitely on its original paint. Very, very thin layer, and probably hence why the bonnet is probably the worst part of it, because there's very, very little protection on it. So you can see the pitting that's there. Now that's completely flat if you run your hand over it. It's flat in so much that if you primed it, you probably wouldn't see any of those marks, which is cool. Yeah, it took me 3 minutes to do that from sanding it. And yeah, I could potentially prime it, but I haven't treated the rust, and that is what I was talking about over here, by making sure that you get down beyond it and that you get all those bits out. You can see there's a bit there, and it's just ready to eat through. Now I'm going to finish sanding this, and I'm going to keep going on down, and I'll show you what it looks like afterwards. And there we have it. All those little scabs are gone. Actually, essentially just polished them out with, with the sander, and going up through various different grade discs. And I now know, and the customer now knows, that there is no rust going to reappear. So you're not going to have any of this business in 3, 6, or 12 months' time. So it's back to the way it was, which is fantastic. And it's just a case of patience and going through all the different grades of discs just to get a nice smooth finish on it, and that's ready to take 2-pack primer, and back to its former glory. Now just to keep going and do the rest of it. A lot of hours left in this car yet. Just sanding down the other side here now with on the quarter panel. I'm just going along with a 180 disc. And that quarter panel is absolutely perfect. Coming along the door here, which is perfect, and it's coming along here, and there was a little split. So I started sanding, and there's a nice little dent there. And what that is full of fillers. So, and there's a little hole there. So I want to find out what's going on. Now, the reason why the fillers had split is because the rust had, there's a small bit of rust in behind there, and that had started to rise, and it cracked the filler. So the only way to prevent that happening again is dig it out. And there it is, all dug out. So what looks like some sort of really strange dent all the way down the door here. At some point, doesn't look that bad on when I'm looking through the camera here, but there was a considerable amount of fillers in there. No need for it, to be honest with you. So I got all the filler out of it, and I'm really glad I did. Now, some may argue that what was the point? Why didn't you just get rid of the rust where the split was? Well, I'll tell you what the point was. As I was going down, all the way down that dent, in behind the filler, there was a lot of rust patches that were ready to erupt. And if I hadn't taken it all out, 3-6 months time, that could have popped out from underneath it and ruined the finish. And then, you know, all the time I spent on the other panels on the car would have been for what? Because it would have popped out. So, you know, it's so important not to cut corners doing body work. I mean, you get one chance to get it right, and you see all these holes in it. That's where someone's just obviously screwed something into it, got a slide hammer, and just yanked the dent out. I'm going to tidy that up a bit. There's a couple of high bits there. I'm just going to get those down and try and do a bit more of a tastier job than was done with it. But there was no need for the amount of filler that was in it. It really wasn't. So at least now we know what's there. We're able to get out the rust that was forming underneath it, and bring it back up, and hopefully it should be okay. Now, I knocked out that dent as best I could, and instead of putting body fillers in there, because there was just too much of it for the depth that was there, for strength, now I've just gone over it with a skim of fiberglass, and we'll be sanding that down now in a minute. Have a look at the level, and I'll probably go again with another drop of fiberglass up there, just because I just can't get into that crease. Sand that down, get that crease up as far as I can with fiberglass, and then put a small skim of fillers over it, and at least the strength will be in the door then. Right, bonnet time. So I have the underside of the bonnet. There's probably no need to paint the underside of the bonnet, but I would, if it was my car, absolutely hate if I lifted the bonnet, looked in, saw a lovely clean engine bay, and then saw the underside of the bonnet didn't get painted. So the underside of the bonnet is ready to be primed, and so is the top side here. However, when I took all the paint off it, there was a little tiny ripple in the metal there. Now you can't even see it because it's gone, but just the tiniest skim of fillers needs to go in there. It's a tiny amount, just to make sure that it's completely flat, because that would annoy me if it wasn't 100% right. So that's going to get primed now very shortly. This sunroof panel, back to bare metal, and there are some spots in it that I am slightly concerned about. That will they reappear? So I'm going to dig into them a little bit more now, and see if I can get much more out of them, and really try and. So I've gone in with a very coarse disc on this one, but I'm going to go in with a very fine disc now. Go up, work my way up through the discs, and try and polish those little spots out of it. Now I won't get them all because some of them have gone deep, but the more them I get, the less chance of them reappearing are. There's a couple along there. But look, the panel itself is very good. The underside of it is very good. But the metal is quite thin. So I'm just going to make sure there's loads and loads of primer on there. And a good build. And hopefully that should seal it and secure it in. So, right, crack on with a small bit of fillers on that. Get that polished and get priming. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed that one. Very detailed on the preparation of the paint job, but I think it's well worth it. and it just goes to show, you know, the level of work that's gone into this one. So join me on the next one, where we'll continue on and prime everything, and then ultimately paint it, and then flatten it all down and give it a nice buff up, and fingers crossed it turns out really nice, which I hope it will do, and I'm sure it will do. So Lockdown Motors is now on Instagram at Lockdown Motors. I'll put it in the description below. And if you're liking these videos, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and even hit the notification button, and you'll get a notification when there is a new upload. So thank you for watching, and catch you all on the next one.